Hey everybody, this is Sketch Monkey here. Welcome back to a new video. In this video, we're gonna put the digital stuff aside and we're gonna focus on this little thing right here. This is just a regular big pen. We're gonna use this along with some very cheap print paper over there. And I'm gonna show you, yes, you, how you can sketch a car in both side view and in perspective using just 3 simple steps. I think this is going to be super fun for you if you follow along in this video. So pick up a pen. It doesn't have to be this specific pen. It can be any pen you have laying around on the desk. Any type of paper you have. And let's jump into this video. Well, here we are. We have our piece of very cheap print paper right here. And it feels great to be back to some analog sketching. All the digital stuff is a lot of fun. But I never want to get away from the basics of analog sketching because it's so simple to just pick up a pen and paper and just start doodling like this. So what I'm going to show you today is something that you can use to just have fun with, impress your friends, or whatever you want. But we're going to focus on sketching cars. I did a poll, or I asked my Instagrammers what they want to learn the most when it comes to sketching. And the number one answer was cars, obviously. I understand that. I love to sketch cars. I can do that all day. But more specifically, proportions and perspective. So these are the 2 things that were requested the most. Today, though, we're gonna focus first of all on sketching side views. I think that's the easiest way to get started. So here's the thing. I'm using a very cheap big pen here. And let's say we want to sketch a sedan. Let's do a sedan. So we have, first of all, follow along. If you have pen and paper, which I'm sure you do, just follow along in this video. I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of fun with it. So start first with putting out a line like that. This line is going to be the baseline and the reference line for everything else we do on this car. So it's a very simple way to get started, but still a very important way. So what we want to do next is think about what type of sedan we want to create, if we want a big luxury sedan or a smaller one. And that all depends on how big the wheelbase is. And the wheelbase is the distance between the wheels, the axles. In this case, we might want to do something in between, so put out a wheel right here and one right here. This distance, how you get to this distance, is probably a question that you have. The easiest way to explain it, or the easiest way to practice this, is to look at a photo from a side view of an existing car, and then you just try, you can print the image out, and then you put out the wheels on top of that image on a blank sheet of paper. Or if you don't want to do that, you can just measure, I think it's 3.5 wheels in between here, something like that. So you can see that it's 3.5 wheels in between the 2 axles. That's kind of the standard for just a regular car and proportions when it comes to sketching cars. So that's the first thing we want to do. Put out the line right here, then 2 and 3, step 2 and 3. Now what we want to do next is to figure out the proportions of the car. Proportions, again, is easiest to practice by sketching real cars or have a reference from a real car. But what I like to do, and when you get more used to it, I can sketch a sedan just straight curves here now, but that's not going to help you a lot. So what I'm going to do is just box everything in. So we create 3 boxes. I talk in detail about these techniques in my course. You can find it down below if you're interested in learning the more advanced method, and when I have more time to explain this to you. This is the basic version of it. So we're going to use 3 boxes, 1 box right there, and then probably 1 box somewhere around here, which extends further than right here, because this is the front. So we have the front, this is the direction of this car. That means that the trunk is not going to be as long as the hood, and the hood is usually a little bit lower than the trunk. So let's put the 3rd box out here, which is the trunk, a little bit higher than this, but still not a very big box. And right here, we have the proportions of our sedan. What we need to do now, so now we have the proportions, and we have the wheelbase, and we have the overall dimensions and volumes of this car. So what we want to do now is to simply connect all of these boxes and start to actually design and style this car, because this looks like something like a cartoon car or something like that. We do want some styling in here. So what you can start by doing is to simply round all the edges. And this is the windshield, so we need to have an angle here. So let's just make it into an angle like that. And then have some curvature going to the roof, like that. And then it should dip down somewhere around here and create a trunk somewhere around there. It's all about, a lot of this is a matter of taste, so it's up to you how far you want the trunk, for example, to stick out. But there are a few rules that I'm going to talk about in just a second that's going to make this a whole lot easier to get this at least, you know, semi-right, so it doesn't look super weird if you sketch this for the first time, for example. And the hood needs to have some sort of, a little bit of a slope to it, so let's create that. And then we kind of want to have a bumper or a front that goes something like this. Like that. And then we can create the A-pillar, needs some thickness right here. And it goes all the way down to the C-pillar back here, creating the greenhouse. And we have the baseline of the car going right about there. Then we can put out the far side wheel, which we see underneath the car. Like that. And then add a ground shadow for the cars to make it look like it's sitting on the ground and not floating around in mid-air. And there we have it. This is our first sketch. This is our sedan. We can create a B-pillar as well if you want to do that. Add some doors to this. At least some cut lines for the doors. So we have a bit of a guide to show everybody that we're actually sketching a 4-door sedan. We might want to add the doors, something like that. Now, this is actually the hardest part of sketching cars, is to get to this point. And once you're here, now everything is all about styling and having fun. This is like this is like building a house. You're just laying the foundation of the house. You're not doing anything creative yet, really. You're just putting out a lot of boxes and stuff to get the proportions right. But once you have this, now you can go in and start to play around with the tail lights, the shoulder line. Maybe we can have a bit of a shoulder line that goes like this, and a line that maybe connects almost to that point. It kind of fades out in the body around there. Create some strength in the rear by adding this rear fender right here, and we can make this typical line that goes down there and have this line maybe continue into the rear, so we have something like that. Since we're looking at this from a side view, I still want to have it in perspective though. There's no going around putting things in perspective, even if you're sketching in side view. And that means that we are going to see part of the windshield, because it's a curvature right here. This windshield curves around, which means that we're going to see a little bit of the side of it right there. We're also going to see the headlights, because the headlights are not actually sitting on a flat surface facing forward. They wrap around the side of this car, and that obviously needs to be visualized somehow. Same thing here. Easiest way to figure all of this out is to look at existing cars and see how all these curves play together and how you can connect them yourself, and take the existing curves of a car and then just experiment and change a few angles of it and make it into your own design. So we're going to do the same thing here now. In the rear, create let's just make it very simple. So let's make it dip like this. Goes out to a bumper or something like there. And then we have the rear lights sticking like that. So we have like, this would be rectangular rear lights if you're looking at it from the rear. And since this is glass, I always want to put out some of the interior that we see through the glass. And that is simply copying this line that goes right here, copying that, shrink it down a little bit so that we see the far side A-pillar, and then we have the roof, the roof of the car, or the ceiling of the car inside right here, so we can see a little bit of that through the windows. And that just gives a little bit of depth to the sketch when you're doing that, especially when you're sketching side views, because it's so kind of tricky sometimes to get depth in side views. But if you do these small details that comes with sketching in perspective in side view, it actually adds a lot to the sketch. For example, seeing the far side wheels underneath the car, seeing the interior right here, seeing the side of the front and the windshield right here. If I wasn't sketching the windshield here, it would look very weird. It would look like this windshield is a flat, like a Jeep Wrangler or any Jeep. Actually, the Jeep Wrangler, the Cherokee, has a curved windshield. But for example, it would look like it was a Jeep Wrangler windshield on a very dynamic looking sedan, and that's just gonna look off. So these details are pretty important when you're sketching. Just keep those in mind. And once we're at this point, now we can really start to get into it and add some line weight, for example. The line weight is all about line thickness. It's the same word. So line weight equals line thickness. And this is really important when you're sketching just using a big pen, because if you're using markers, it's very easy to get some depth into the sketch. Because you can layer markers on top of each other. You have a bunch of different gradients which you can use, but you can't really do that with a big pen. So the line weight becomes more important when you're sketching with a big pen. They're still important when you're sketching with markers, but I would say they're even more important right here when you're sketching just with a pen to get that depth feeling of the car. So I want to add some line weight to the wheels as well, which is not the easiest thing to do, if I'm honest, because it's all a curvature and you need to follow it precisely. I don't like to have a lot of unclean lines. I want this to be a clean line. That's not always the easiest thing to do, but if you focus on it and you still have your original guideline to follow, that makes it, of course, a lot easier to get this right. I'm gonna finish this sketch, and then I'm gonna show you just a quick sketch down here of how you can sketch a car very easily, just using 3 lines in perspective. I think it's a good refresher for both you and myself to go back to that. And I think a lot of you will enjoy that when you try it yourself. You're gonna be surprised by how easy it is to sketch a car. And the thing is, when you're sketching like this, don't expect it. If you're not experienced with sketching, you know, don't put so much pressure on yourself to make it look perfect, because chances are it's not going to look perfect. The thing with sketching, and the thing you need to realize to get to a certain point, whether it be in sketching or any subject or category that you're trying to improve in, is that you have to fall in love with the process of getting to your goal. You need to be excited about the process of getting there. Just looking at every single sketch that you do in the beginning and it doesn't really look the way you want it to, it's okay. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, because you're just starting out. So don't put a lot of pressure on yourself trying to make this look perfect or anything like that. Just get excited with the process of getting better and the process of sketching itself, and just have it be like a you have some coffee, you just chill out, listen to some music, and just doodle a few lines and follow along in this video. And I'm sure you're going to get a few tips out of this video that will really help you out with sketching cars. Alright, so we have our side view complete right here. We can, of course, continue sketching on this if we want to, but we're not going to do that right now. Hold on a second, just going to add some sort of spokes to this car right here. Very simple 5-spoke design. I'm a fan of elegant looking wheels. The, you know, not too complicated, not too messy. Just a simple wheel design. It works. It's totally fine for me. What we're gonna do now is go down here, and I'm gonna show you how to sketch a normal front engine or mid-engine sports car in perspective. It's very, very easy if you follow these steps. It might not, as I said before, it might not look the way this is going to look, but it's still going to be, I'm still going to try to make it as easy as possible for you to figure this one out. First of all, let's start with the same kind of, I'm making this a little bit of a curve here, as you can see, and that there's a reason for that. That's just because it helps me with perspective, and it kind of gives a more dynamic feel to the sketch from the first line than if I were to sketch a straight line. You can do a straight line as well. It doesn't really matter if you do a straight or a curve there. And I'm gonna have this be in a 3/4 rear view. What I want to do now is put out the wheels, the wheel arches, by making half a circle like that in the end of this line. And then we're gonna move over here to this point, somewhere around there, and then put out a little bit of a bigger half circle. So this half circle right here is just a little bit bigger than this, and that's because, of course, perspective plays in here. This point is closer to us than this point, and everything goes away from us, and the things that are further away will naturally be a lot smaller than the things that are closer to us. And this all depends. You can make it even tighter if you want to do that. If you want to have a really tight view, you can make them super close to each other like this, but that means that the width here needs to be tighter as well, obviously, because you're looking at it from a completely different angle. But we're gonna focus on this type of angle right here. Then what I want to do is put out the end point of this sketch. So just make a dot or anything like that. This little dot right here, that is a guide point for myself to figure out where all the lines are going to stop and where all the lines are going to come together. It might not look like much, this little thing right there, but it actually serves a very important purpose in the sketch. And we might not hit it later, we might adjust it as we go. That doesn't matter, but for now, this is kind of where I see the end of this car being. So let's make this into a classic Bembly car, Sketch Monkey 2-door front engine car. So I want to start by just adding the fenders like this. We can start this way, like that. And then this needs to dip. We can have a little bit of a dip to the top part of this wheel right there. So this goes to this point right there. And then measure between these 2 points, that point and that point, the center point of the axles, measure in the middle of that. So sketch out something like this. We can even make a box here too. Why not? Let's make a box like that. And from here, this is the point where the A-pillar is going to start. And we obviously need a lot more of an angle than just a straight A-pillar that goes straight up if we have a sports car. That's not going to work. So we need to have a bit of an angle on this, maybe 45 degrees or something like that. The lower it goes, the more of a concept sketch it becomes, I would say. But let's make it semi-realistic this time. So let's make almost like a maybe 45-degree angle, like that, from this point that we just measured in between these 2 points. And then we need to have a bit of a plateau up here. So stretch this line out before we go down. This is actually easier to do the faster you do it, at least for me. So something like this. And here we have the getting to this point in a 3/4 rear view, this is the hardest part to get to this point. Once you're here, all the lines that we need are in place to start to play around and do whatever we want with this car. What we want to do now, what I usually do is just create an endpoint, an end line for that. So we have maybe an integrated ducktail, which you know I love, something like that. We can make a center point too. Center point, and as you can see, this point that I had here is no longer useful. We stretched this out further than I thought the car was going to end. So this is obsolete right now. Just delete that. Don't think about it anymore, because we have even stronger guidelines now than we had when we started out. And from here, we can create the greenhouse, which would be a line like that. And this line goes down something like this. It doesn't really matter. This is all up to you how you want to design your car, obviously. And I'm not going to forget the side mirrors, which I get a lot of comments on when I don't sketch them out. And the reason I'm not sketching them out, I've said this before, but I can say it again. The reason is, when you're sketching cars like this, a side mirror is not really, it doesn't really bring a lot of meaning to a sketch. It's just a part that you can barely see, and you can barely design it or do anything with it. So it doesn't contribute to the overall styling of it, just a normal doodle like this. But I understand it might look weird. Some people might think of these as arms or ears, and it feels like something is missing when the side views are not there. So I'm just going to put them out there anyway. And the easy part here, we have this roof line. So let's just copy this roof line there, and we have our rear the rear glass window right here. We just need to copy the lines that we already have. So I copied this line one time right there, and then 2 times right here. And from here we can start to, maybe if we want to round the edges, we can do that, round the corners. I hope you're following along in this sketch so far, because I'm having a lot of fun, and I really hope you are having a lot of fun as well and learning something new. Sketching like this is, I can do it forever. I have been doing it forever. I've been doing this for, I don't know how many years now, maybe over 20 years, just sketching doodles like this. So we have the center point right here. It's very relaxing to sketch with pen and paper. Super relaxing. And time just stands still. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but I don't care, because I'm having so much fun that I don't really care about if it's turning out to be a super long video. Anyway, this is the bumper, or some sort of bumper right there. We can have maybe something that goes, some sort of diffuser or something like that down here, if you want to do that. It's all up to you at this point, because the proportions are already there, perspective is there. You can put on some wheels, some very thin looking sporty things right here, like that. Maybe stretch this one out further down like that, so we have a similar to this one right here. Also, baseline here. Let's add a baseline. I'm already adding some extra pressure to the baselines, because I know I'm gonna have to go in and fill those in. As we talked about up here, line weight is super important when it comes to sketching in general. No matter what view you're sketching, line weight, don't forget about that when you're sketching. And don't be afraid to add some pressure on your sketches to make it pop, especially if you're sketching on a simple white paper like this. It's just black and white. Try to get a full, almost 100% black in your sketches at some point in the sketch. It's just gonna give it a nice contrast and make it look crisper. Add some line weight on this one as well, up there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and fill this in now with the line weight like I did here. There's nothing really else to add to this sketch from this one, except all the things that we already talked about, the proportions, the points, the boxes, and all of that. Once you're at this point, you're all set. You can go ahead and design your car, which is what I'm gonna do right now. Don't need to talk over it, so I'm just gonna fast forward through this part and then come back at the end of this video. So, there we have it. That's how you sketch a car when you're just starting out and you have that tingling feeling in your fingers that you just need to sketch a car and you want to learn how to do that. This is probably the easiest way that I can think of to start out doing that. I wish I had this video available to me when I was a design student and trying to figure this one out, because just putting random lines all over the place and trying to connect them in a beautiful way, it's not the easiest way to do when you don't really know what you're doing. So having these kind of rules helps a lot to get the basics down. I really hope you enjoyed this video just as much as I enjoyed making it. I'm the Sketch Monkey. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.